All right, everybody. Hello, ZB Ho world. My name is Spicer McLeroy with ZBrush Hangout out of San Antonio, Texas. And tonight we have some amazing friends and artists. I am humbled and humbled and honored to host tonight. This thing always messes up. It always plays music while I'm in the background. Anyway, so tonight we have the amazing Point Pusher for you, and we have plenty of other amazing artists, and let's go through them real quick. We have Ad Lazy. What's going on, brother? We got Christopher. We've got Gen 506.
What's up?
Hiram, Highly Top Secret CG. Jeremy Ortiz.
What's good?
Karen McCarthy, K-Mactastic. Leo David Art.
Hello.
And Ricardo Morgia.
Hi.
And of course, my name is Spicer McLeroy with ZBrush Hangout, and tonight we have a very special theme specifically for you, Danny, because of all the love and everything that you've done for the community. Tonight's theme is you and all of your work that you have done. So we're going to speed sculpt.
No, but I've worked on a lot of crappy shit. We should change this right now.
So we are going to be sculpting on your concept art tonight.
Oh,
and boy. You get to see that come alive. And of course, as a special guest, you can do whatever the hell you want to do. All right.
And I'm going to sculpt.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
All right. So you have 1 hour and 30 minutes. At the end of that 1 hour and 30 minutes, the public will judge you very harshly, and we will have a winner at the end of the show. Right now, Karen is the reigning champion. And we will
one vote.
She won by 1 vote.
I guess they only voted one time.
One more than all of us.
I know
and we are going to start right.
Oh
meow.
shit! Wait, things have to happen.
Come on.
All right, and if any of y'all need a link to his artwork, the link is in the chat.
Isn't it pointpusher.com?
So, Danny, for those who don't know who you
It's
are,
in the chat. Yeah, right. Where's the link? Right, what's the link? Oh, that link.
For those that don't know who you are, what you do, what you've done, can you give us a little rundown on who the hell you are, Danny?
I am working in upstate New York right now at a company called Vicarious Visions. We just finished the Crash Bandicoot remakes, and before that I worked in, did some Skylander stuff, and right now we're working on Destiny.
What?
And then
Nice.
before that I was at DreamWorks for a few years, and then before that I was at ArenaNet for a few years, and before that I was at Blue Sky for a lot of years, so I'm super old.
And also
Those
for those who don't know, you also did Lunch Crunch, which was sparked such a huge community.
Oh yeah.
And and your Hangouts alone sparked ZBrush Hangout and plenty of other Hangouts as well. And yeah, it's the main reason that we're having you as the theme for tonight is because of all the great things you've done for the community and bringing people together and all the wonderful information, how approachable you are, and yeah, so we're doing this to honor you.
Thanks, man. Well, I can say the same thing about you. You know, seriously. You know, when you guys were starting out ZBrush Hangouts and all that, I remember I literally asked one day on Facebook, because being old, you're always a little behind with technology. And then it was just like, hey, so do people actually use Google Hangouts to do art together? And then someone dropped a link to ZBHO. And it was early on. I think that was the first time I saw it.
Oh,
and I was like, oh, snap, these dudes, they're taking it to the next level, you know? And I got to meet you and Nick and all those guys, and I was just like, wow, they're killing it. So, yeah, pretty crazy. I can say the same damn thing about you, mister.
Well, thank you very much, Danny. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So what have you been doing outside of this whole game?
Not a whole lot recently. So when we moved back to the East Coast, I ended up teaching at the School of Visual Arts again on the weekends. I did that while I worked at Blue Sky for a while. So now I'm doing that again. And then I think this is the first time I'm saying it publicly, but I'm doing a class with CGMA in the fall.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, just doing a little bit of teaching on the side, and just trying to learn now, like trying to like be one of those behind the scene dudes that shows up later on and people go, oh snap, where'd he go? And he came back and he was better. That's the hope, or just never come back. So it's gonna go one of 2 ways.
That's cool, man. That's cool. Man, I'm so glad to have you on here. Glad to hear your voice again.
Ditto, man.
I'm glad you got a break from the hustle and bustle of work.
Yeah, I mean, right now, coming off of those Crash games, I don't think I can talk about what we're doing now, obviously, but since Crash is already shipped, then I can talk about that. I legit forgot how much fun you could have on a project. And it sounds cheesy to say, like people say shit like that. Like, my company's great, whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah, but like, seriously, I forgot how much fun you could have on a project. And that project really was a really good time. I liked the people I worked with, and the project itself was great. We had a good manager, which always really helps. Yeah, it was really, really a good time.
So how long were you on that project?
Quiet as it's kept. It was about 7 months, I think, to do 3 games, which you go, oh, well, they're remakes, so you're reusing a bunch of stuff, but we're not. A lot of it's all like, redone. We did have like level geometry to compare to, and we had designers that would pull some of the original game assets for the characters, but they're like kind of older OBJs that are just in a pose or something, and we would use it for general proportion. And early on, the really interesting thing was there were some people early on who were interpreting like we got to be faithful to every angle that was in the old one. And I think as we went along, it was kind of understood like, hey, you look at the angle and evaluate, was that there because of a limitation in poly count, or was that there because of the design, the core character design? And once we kind of hit that stride, things got a little bit more fun, because then there was a little room for interpretation, but we had a good team that was really good about kind of getting together, and you're doing something you think is awesome, and then they just put their hand on your shoulder and shake their head and go, no.
No, I'm sorry, that's not.
Not awesome. No, but it was really good, and we had a small team. We had 4 people working on in the character team. We had 4 people working on it, and it was just kind of cool to work on that. So I didn't know it was going to be as fun as it was when we started up, and I'm glad I got to be on it.
Oh yeah, such an iconic franchise.
Even that, I was aware of Crash. It was around when I was a kid, but I was never really like a super huge fan when I was a kid. I played more Crash, in the last year than I ever did as a kid, for sure.
Right. Yeah.
The old one, not even thinking about the new one, but the old one, just to get familiar with things. And you could tell it was really great for its time, but man, that game was hard and is hard. It's still hard. It's a very frustrating game.
Even on easy?
There is no easy.
Ooh, there's no definitely not picking that one.
I know that. Yeah, no, it's a really tough game. It's pretty crazy.
Wow. That bridge level, though, that kind of made me mad.
Oh yeah, infuriating.
Why did you add that? I mean, it was in the game. I remember it clearly, but
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, there's like 1,000 people on Reddit complaining about changing the jump physics, and that's on
Yes.
that particular level.
Yep.
but that was where it was. So I'm not going to complain about that.
Cheat and use the ropes, man. That's what I do.
Actually, that's why you did.
Yeah.
I feel like I was cheating because I was cheating.
Yeah. The other day we were playing that, and one of the levels, Temple Run, there's a part where you can kind of sit there and cheese and just get a bunch of free men. And I got 99 free men for my daughter, and she's 7. And then I watched her lose all 99 of them on one of the bridge levels.
Right.
And do you think I told her about the ropes? Nope. I told you guys. So much I love you.
Such a great dad.
Oh.
Of course, she gotta learn sometime.
Yeah, whatever. It's, I don't know. It's kind of crazy watching little children become their own people. But I've got little children, and I'm old enough to have not so little children. It's crazy.
So which child is your favorite?
The good one.
So none of them.
That means
Yeah.
So Rafazente said he loves the death scenes in that game. Did you have to model the body parts when the Bandicoot hit the nitro?
So I didn't. There is a really great artist named Corey Turner who did all of the Crash stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like the perfect guy to do it. Like, aside from being very, very good, he is the one that really understood the fandom of this. And like on Skylanders, he did like there were some Nintendo characters that made it into the Skylander universe, and he worked on those guys. And then he worked on Crash when Crash made it into one of the Skylander games before we started doing the remakes. And he basically is one of those people that really gets how fans think. Mm-hmm. Whereas the rest of us were like, I want to be an artist with a capital A and make whatever looks nice. There were definitely times where he was course correcting, like, no guys, we cannot do that. That's too far of a departure. People will hang us.
Wow.
And
That's
he has he has a really good, like, kind of, aside, like I said, from being like a great artist, so he worked on all the Crash stuff, and everyone was just like, of course, because he's good and he knows, So yeah, so I didn't do any of that, but he did. Corey did do those things.
So what do we got over here, and what do we got? What concept art did you choose?
I found some skeleton stuff from penguins from Point Pusher's website, and I'm trying to do something in that style. I can show you, like these, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna do exactly these. I'm gonna do something in this style. I know.
Nice. And Christopher, what we got over here, dude? What are you sculpting?
Bugman.
Bugman?
Bugman. That's all I can say.
You beat me to it, Chris. I was gonna do that one.
Yeah.
I gotta switch it up right now. I saw you doing it like, fuck.
Bugman.
Looking good. And Jim, what do we got over here, man? You doing a...
Yeah, I'm doing this over, guys.
I'm about to say, you doing Bugman too? All right.
A really lively sketch.
Right, yeah, and those in the audience, if you have any questions for any of these guys, just let us know. And at the end of the show, we will be deciding who did the best artwork, and maybe just maybe, a special guest will win this time. Who knows?
Oh boy.
Who knows?
Really?
The heat is on. The heat is on. So how's it going over here, Hiram?
Never told us
Doing good.
I'm working on this guy right here, his robot. I was gonna do the one Chris was doing, but I saw him, so I had to switch it up.
Doing good. Jeremy, which one did you choose?
I choose you, Pikachu. I choose
He's a Bugman. That's what he shoots.
biker or something like that.
Oh, the bike one? Oh, yeah. I
The
remember
old
that
biker
one.
dude.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like, you know what's crazy? It's like, I remember seeing some of these videos and it's like, yeah, he's just chilling, relaxing, doing stuff. But then like trying to emulate that, it's pretty fucking hard. I didn't even consider that. So
Thanks, man.
this is a challenge.
Oh, man. Jeremy, you're going robot again, dude.
Yeah, you're in the Matrix.
Yeah.
That means get out of it.
Get out of it.
Yeah.
Karen, you got the robot as well, huh?
I do.
Nice.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Nice.
Fun piece. There he is. I hope to do
Am
it
I back?
justice.
Hello?
There you are.
Yeah.
No longer in the Matrix.
Yeah, turns out my internet provider, when I start using a lot of bandwidth, has like some kind of throttle back feature, so it's a super dick move, but whatever.
Oh, no. It must be those extra fees you're paying for. What about you, Leo? What are you working on?
I'm doing a reverse concept in that I'm making a concept out of a 3D thing that he did. This is the infected brood. Like that kind of fits the stuff that I've been working on my own. So yeah, it's pretty fun. I'll try doing that in 2D.
All right, guys. Well, you have 1 hour and 15 minutes.
I don't believe you.
15 minutes.
I do not believe you.
And what about you, Ricardo? Which one are you working on?
It's a really polite zombie guy that's asking for friends. I will just link you, but I got it open on my tablet since I don't have a second screen.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, hang on a second. I'll pick it. Oh yeah, I don't have the link anymore because I crashed there when it linked the page. Fuck.
Horrible.
Also, I just noticed it is like the wrong orientation because I looked at the back. Fuck.
That's that good stuff, man. That's that ZBrush life.
Not anymore. There's gizmos now.
Oh, I love that gizmo, man.
Yeah, it's pretty cool so far.
Yeah, I still use the transpose lines for posing, but the gizmo for pretty much everything else. It's so useful.
Yeah, it was so weird. I complained about transpose for so long. Like, oh man, why can't we just have a regular gizmo? And then as soon as I got a regular gizmo, the first day I opened it up, I was like, I'll go back to transpose. I'm not used to this.
Yeah, same here.
That's great.
So what do you think about the Z-Mauler?
It's awesome. Another guy that I work with, a gentleman named Kenzie Lamar. All right, let's play a game. What does Kenzie Lamar look like?
Kendrick Lamar?
Yeah,
Okay.
does he look like Kendrick?
All right. Is that a guess?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Kenzie Lamar is a white dude from upstate New York.
Nice, dude.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Yeah, it's
You know
pretty
what?
crazy.
He's moving up in the world. There you go.
But he's like he's really great, like illustrator and modeler and everything. And he was the first one of us to really kind of deep dive. Like, you don't need Max, you don't need Maya anymore. Like, you can just do everything here.
Mm-hmm.
And I still lean on Maya a lot. So I still use both.
Right.
But he's so fast with it now. He just kind of does like a deep dive and just goes. So, but I dig it. The more I play with it, the more I dig it.
Yeah, see, Joshua Grant has a question. Says hi, by the way. Is it necessary for 3D artists to learn every software that they can? It seems that some of the programs are better for some things or in higher demand. Should someone learn them all or focus on the ones relevant to the field they want to pursue?
What do you guys think? I'll answer last and probably just go, yep.
I think it's great to know a little bit of everything. And sort of find different workflows and each different type of program will make it easier for a certain type of tasks that you might want to do.
I think
But
that
I like to keep myself in just pick one up really, really, really well. So if I don't have to come out, then I will go out. But if not, no. Try not to.
What about you, Jeremy?
I was going to say, ultimately, at the end of the day, you only have so many hours to use. So you need to figure out like what you want to do for yourself and then focus on learning those tasks. Like if you're going to be a character artist, learn ZBrush and then maybe pick up something that you could re-topo with and texture with. If you're going to be an animator, go into Maya and animate. I personally like Maya and ZBrush as a combination. It's a 1-2 punch. It pretty much covers everything, but I also hit up Substance Designer and Substance Painter for texturing. But if you try to learn everything, what's the old saying? You know, like master
Jack of all trades.
Yeah, master of none. So like if you want to be like a precision expert at something, you should like hammer down on one of those. And you really got to know what you want to do. That's what it boils down to. But Maya is always a good thing to have under your belt. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that I would agree with a lot of that. Like for me, the one thing I try to think about is kind of what's going to be good for the job in front of me, you know? So right now I'm learning Marvelous Designer because I'm going to be working on things that have Marvelous Designer elements to them. If I was not going to be doing that, I'm not sure that I would learn Marvelous Designer right now, you know? Right. But since I know coming up that there's going to be things that, you know, require Marvelous Designer, then obviously I want to do that. So I do think, like if I was independently wealthy and didn't have to work a day job, I would for sure just be a perpetual student, right? And I would want to learn things, you know. But even like, so when we used to do the Hangouts and when Jerry was in the Hangouts a lot, you know, so I would see like Jerry and think, oh, here's this like young guy, he's doing cool work or whatever, but come on, like, you know, C4D, like whatever, let's go. And now I look at the stuff that he's doing and I'm like, teach me, master, please. You know, so it's like, it's you think I'm kidding, I actually have hit him up like that, like, dude, please teach me.
Nice.
So, you know, it just depends, like somebody like that where he's got like, you know, that kind of spirit to go do that, he's looking at a hole in the marketplace and saying, I'm going to make something, you know? So if you're going to do that, it's kind of different. Like if you're doing like day-to-day art, like at a studio or on your own or whatever, then yeah, I totally agree with Jeremy. You got to focus on what you want to do. But the more you're kind of going for like an outside the boxy kind of thing, I mean, I don't know, maybe go a little more nuts then, you know, learn a little more and do a little more then. But yeah, if you're at a day job, learn what they want you to do, and you know, or if you want a job at a studio, learn how they work. And if you see artists from that studio and they're posting work, and it's like, hey, we use these softwares, get to know those softwares if that's the kind of work you want to do, you know.
So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, well, you know, like my theory is, if they really want me at a studio, they gotta learn my workflow.
Yeah, I'm doing it wrong this whole time.
Such great sage advice, Ed.
My process is I model with clay, then I you know, 3D scan it, then I have an artist redraw that as a concept, and then I have someone else model it. Yes.
Sounds extremely efficient, man.
You do it in clay, then you scan your hands.
Actually, there was a funny story about something like this. I think James Cameron, when he was working at Avatar, he was doing clay stuff, right? And he was showing artists, and at one point he actually learned how to use ZBrush to tweak stuff, just like on the set, like, which is really cool. So I completely, you know, endorse everything you guys just said. Like, you know, you gotta learn the tools that they use, that the studios use.
Yeah,
you gotta learn to play.
Yeah, That's an interesting thing too, though, right? Like, because I know, like myself, I spent the first part of my career like just kind of like, oh man, I just want a director that will tell me exactly what they want. And then you hear stories about James Cameron, and you're kind of like, see, like that guy knows exactly what he wants. And the older I get, the more I appreciate having a little bit of freedom. You know, tell me what you want, so I have a goal. But then, you know, and I think it's just part of it is like when you're younger, you don't really have all the time. And I know I didn't, like confidence in like your design sense and things like that.
Right.
So, you know, you want somebody to direct you. Yeah, true story. You want somebody to direct you in kind of what their vision is, so you have a good metric for success, right?
Right.
Hmm.
But the older I get, like I went from see James Cameron like that to now I'm kind of like, you know, see James Cameron, I'm like, ooh, okay, I would do it for the credit, like, you know what I mean? Like, but I'm not sure it would be the most fun gig, but not every gig has to be the most fun gig.
Make every day your last. That's all I gotta say.
Chris with words of inspiration.
Oh man.
And that's how I got fired.
So, Ad, why don't we do a quick little mic check on the panel real quick, so they know who you are, what you do, man.
I'm a character artist, gameplay director, art. I've been doing art directing stuff. I worked as a 3D lead. I do animation, texturing, rigging, a lot of stuff. I'm just passionate about characters. I love characters, and I learned the entire pipeline because you can, you know, if you have the same guy that thinks about the character also do the animation and the texturing, it really translates exactly 100% what he wants with that character, you know. Mm-hmm. And when I work with other artists, if I work with characters and stuff like that, I know exactly what to tell them to do to get that vision out, you know, and to help them out with stuff like that. So that's kind of like my focus, mainly on characters and stuff. And you can find me on ArtStation on Adrian M.
There we go. And Chris, I know who you are, what you do, where they can find you.
My name is Christopher Jones. I mainly do characters, but I'm usually do other 3 stuff just to get you know, some kinks out. But yeah, I'm mainly a character artist. Do a whole bunch of stuff. But y'all can find me in social media, so like Facebook, ArtStation, all that jazz. So yeah, hit me up.
And Gen 506.
Yeah, I'm Gen 506. I do characters as well, in 3D, and you can find me on ArtStation, Twitch, Facebook, and also I learned a lot from watching Point Pushers videos and stuff. So thank you for working on those and being here.
I'm sorry, bro.
No, seriously.
That explains so much.
Throw it all out.
You saying those were not meant for you?
No, you deserve it.
And Hiram.
You guys could find me on ArtStation as a Highly Top Secret, or on I got an art page also called Highly Top Secret CG. I'm usually doing a lot of 3D printing parts for clients right now, and I basically do any other service you guys might need,
Sexual or otherwise. All right. So Jeremy, what's
only sexual? That's the problem.
Just throw that in there. So Jeremy.
Hey, what's up? I'm Jeremy. I go by Jeremy Ninja Robot. Jeremy. Hey, I think I'm Jeremy Ninja Robot on Instagram. I'm just a hobo with a hard drive, and I make models and toys and Hey, you like that, right? Hobo with a heart. I should make that my tag. It's like Hobo with a shotgun, the indie film.
Love that film.
I do character modeling. I'll do any kind of modeling you want if you have money, because I'm just like a hitman.
Yeah.
But I love characters. I do characters, and right now I am. I'm actually open right now. I'm nothing in the pipe at the moment, so that's a scary place for an independent artist. So call me. I need work. Ah!
And K-Mac.
Mac, I thought you said mac and cheese. I said that's okay. I'll roll with it.
No, just K-Mac. I'm a character artist. I work on sports games. Go sports!
Go team!
And you can find me on ArtStation under my name, Karen McCarthy. And I was gonna say, Point Pusher. I've been following since I was in school because my teacher Nick Zuccarello is like a big follower of you. He showed me your stuff, and so I've been following you since then. And also, when Lunch Crunch kind of went away, I felt like someone in my died. It was really sad.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's talked to you about that, like how like it just hit them like emotionally, like oh.
So here's the thing. I'll talk about that a little bit for the first time ever, but I'll go let everybody else get through their things first.
Nice.
Okay.
All right.
Make it quick, Leo. I'm just joking.
I'm done then. I'm Leo David. I'm a character artist, concept artist, sculptor, 3D modeler.
Author too.
What's that?
There you go. Author. Yeah.
How do you know about that?
Oh,
You told us last week.
I am working on my own IP for comics, hopefully in the future. And most of my art I'm available also for freelance. So, what?
Nothing. I'm being a jerk.
I'm sensing a lot of disrespect here tonight.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I realize.
You guys might want to save.
It can be found at Thunderstorm Art on ArtStation, Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, Leo David Art. Yeah, that's it.
All right, you have 1 hour left, everybody.
Jesus.
Ricardo, let everybody know who you are, what you do, where they can find you.
Hi, I'm Ricardo. I'm a 3D artist from Italy. I do characters mostly. I also do hard surface stuff. You can find me on ArtStation on Ricard, which is spelled RIKART.artstation.com. Please hit me up with any jobs. I'm hungry. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this at 5 in the morning. I am actually hungry.
I feel there's a theme here.
But seriously, he's hungry.
Yeah.
All right, Point Pusher, what's the story, dude, on this Lunch Crunch, man?
All right, so basically, I was contracted to do some work at some point, and essentially the way that things shook out was they were contentious about whether or not Lunch Crunch, was theirs or mine.
Mm-hmm.
What?
And the easiest way, according to like a lawyer, was to just dissolve it. It's like, hey, you're not making any money off of it. You're not, basically, am I going to jeopardize an opportunity to feed my family for a fun, cool online community that I wish it didn't have to go that way?
Right.
Or am I going to, just say, hey, I'm not going to do this anymore? So I also talked about having it kind of transfer over to, one of the other admins. So there's a gentleman, Lance Baker,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And Lance.
Gentleman.
Yes, a gentleman. So Lance was responsible for moving Lunch Crunch to Facebook. He was a user when we were on. So it started on Blogger. and then we moved to WordPress, I think, and that was him too. He was kind of like, because Blogger had a 100-person limit.
Oh, okay.
And it was like, hey, so, we've reached the limit and, we don't know what to do. So he was like, hey, WordPress doesn't have a limit. We moved to WordPress. And then when he approached me about Facebook, I was like, what? Like, I don't know if that's going to work. And then on Facebook is where it really blew up. So total props to him, But I talked to them about having him take it over potentially. And they were like, it's easier to just dissolve it all together. So I actually did, when it kind of went down, there were some folks who were kind of really crappy about, you're saying that you have some legal issue, but it's a freaking internet group. Like, how can you have a legal issue? You're lying. And I'm like, why would I lie to you?
Yeah, why?
Like, what is the point in me lying to you, anonymous person I do not know? Like, I'm not trying to impress you or not. So, I ended up dissolving it, and even though I kind of was like, well, it sucks in the beginning that other people were making other groups with the same names, like, be original, get your own name. But after a while, I was kind of like, you know what, who cares? Like, there was a lot of stuff, like Facebook's moderation tools. I was sad to see the community go from like oh, this was a cool thing that all of a sudden blew up and I got to meet a bunch of cool people and everything. I was sad to see it go from that standpoint. I was not sad to see it go from a, hey, Facebook's moderation tools really stink. And it's hard to keep out bots. And, every once in a while you get, hello, I'm sexy Russian lady. I want to join you.
Yes, finally.
It's like someone finally liked me.
Yes, yeah. So, so that part sucked. But in the end, I'm glad it was what it was,
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm glad that it was masked by stuff like, I think a little before that, there was the whole like CG Hub going away and all that, and people got to see like, Artificial popped up and took its, it took its place, and like there will be a new thing. So I'm glad that there was that as a precedent too, like for the people who were kind of hardcore and like messaging me about things.
Right.
And there weren't a ton. There were just a few folks like, sell it to me, and I'm like, it's not a thing to sell. I can't. Believe me, I would take your money if I could, but I can't. It's not a thing to sell. Just make your own.
Yeah, because Lunch Crunch was synonymous with Point Pusher, and I think that's the reason it was like so popular. And how many? You had like 60,000, 70,000. I don't know how many people you had.
I don't think it was that many. But it was. I don't remember how many the exact number was, but it was a lot of folks. It wasn't that high though. I can tell you that. Oh. But what I did notice was like, so myself, I started coming to the conclusion. Like when Lunch Crunch started, it was around the time when I listened to Outliers for the first time. And I was really into the 10,000 hour idea, right? And Malcolm Gladwell really, like, he was my guy. I was like, oh yeah, he can't do anything wrong. This guy's so smart. And Tim Ferriss, the guy, I think that's who it is, who wrote the 4-Hour Work Week and all that. He started to kind of speak out about the 10,000 hour rule years ago. Around the time, I think, when we were moving to Facebook, maybe a little after. And his thing was, the average person does need 2,000 hours. Now tell me who shoots to be average. And his whole philosophy was about learning to learn.
Right.
And he basically was like, once you learn to learn, you recognize the sensation of the growth that you get from when you learn things. And he was like, so if you can recognize that sensation in one thing, you kind of can see it in a lot of things. So you don't need to necessarily spend 10,000 hours if you're really focused. And it was the first time I heard about focus practice. And I was like, oh yeah, I want to do more of that. So like for my own personal lunch crunches, they moved from like 1 hour, hey, what can I get done in a speed sculpt, to, all right, I want to do chapters of a thing and spend an hour at a time at lunch or at night or whatever working on a thing, right? So I was aware of that process. Earlier this year or last year, there were like a couple of panel talks, like Disney had one or whatever, and they were using the term lunch crunch and like kind of talking it down, and they were just like, hey, you can't use lunch crunches as like a thing that won't get you a job. And in my head, I'm like, no, that's not what it ended up being. It ended up being about chapters, like not just like, so when they were talking about focus practice and stuff, it was like, yeah, you can totally do that as a lunch crunch. So it was like kind of misunderstood, but the community was gone and there was no need to like kind of defend that idea or whatever. But it did suck that people thought that that's all that it was. I wish that it stuck around longer, because I think it would have grown into a different thing that could have been cool.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah, because the speed sculpts and everything that you were doing, I'd never known of the concept of that before I saw like Lunch Crunch and you promoting that type of like speed sculpts. And now whenever like last semester I was teaching character modeling, every single day in class we did a speed sculpt, and like the amount of growth and talent and skill was just crazy.
Yeah, I think there's some value to it. It's like it's definitely like you get to experience going from tool to tool or process to process, and I think there's value in seeing things as situational, right? So I've worked with artists before where they go, I am doing a thing, like I'm doing this as a theme for the thing I'm working on. That means I'm relegated to using these tools. And it's like, well, there's situations where that might make sense, and there's situations where it probably would make sense to go a different way. And you just have to have all the like ways of doing things kind of sort of under your belt for as much as you can, and then make that determination on the fly, And at least that's the way I think about it. And I've just noticed a lot that like there's people who are like, even like with game stuff, like there have been times where like if you're working on a simple prop or something like that, you can drop it into Substance if you've got enough in the like silhouette of even if you didn't have a sculpt, like if you started with a base mesh or something, which is not that common anymore. But there's times when you can like just not even necessarily rely on a bake for a lot of your detail, depending on how the thing is going to be used. But there's still folks that are like, nope, I have to do this whole linear process.
Oh, yeah.
And you can, and if you have time, you should. But if you're in a time crunch and the thing's going to be in the background and you can get away with just manipulating a height map, well then I think at that point you should evaluate your time versus the usage of that thing, So
guys, sorry to butt in, I gotta reboot, right back.
Yep. Yeah, so anyway, just be flexible, I guess, and use what you have for a lot of things. So I think speed sculpting can help in that way, but and it's not to compare what we do to any kind of like surgery or anything, but like I've never heard of like, hey, we're gonna do a bunch of like speed arthroscopic surgery rounds, you know what I mean? Like, and they want to be really expert too. So I think it's cool, but it's got limited use. So ultimately, I think the Disney guys are right about like you can do it, but what you do it for. If you're doing it to make portfolio pieces, probably not the wisest choice.
Right.
If you're doing it to just practice, absolutely it's great.
Yeah, like I think it's really good. Like speed sculpts really keep you open-minded, because in speed sculpts, when you drop in with a bunch of artists and they're like, okay, let's do this topic, chances are you've never tried to do that topic before, and it really opens up your your tool set, because you learn how to approach things differently all the time.
Absolutely, and it helps you just get the feel of the character, and a lot of people just worry about like anatomy and getting everything right, and then with speed sculpt, it's just like I just want the feeling. If I can get that,
exactly, because sometimes they stay and they're like, yeah, I really modeled this deltoid for like a month, right? What about the rest of it? Like, what's the feel?
What rest of it?
It's just a deltoid.
This is for Deltoid the movie.
Use Deltoid.
This is Deltoid. Go boom.
there's got to be a guy out there, right? Like the way there are dudes named Dell. There's got to be a dude out there named Deltoid, right?
That sounds like an actual rapper name, which I'm going to try to find right now.
Wow. Deltoid day every day.
So, Point Pusher, do you have any, like, I mean, you have a really strong design sense, and you obviously have your own style. Like, are you putting together any animations or comics or games, or is that something that appeals to you?
Not really. I know that there are a lot of folks who have like an entrepreneurial kind of spirit. I like money. I don't like organizing people to make the money.
Right.
So like a friend of mine wanted to start a company at one point, and we talked about it, and the more we talked about it, I didn't feel confident. Because like, all right, so if we start a thing and we say, hey, you know what, we're gonna be our own bosses and whatever. After a while, there's inevitably gonna become a time, if it's successful, where you go, you know what, I don't want to be the guy in charge of doing the stuff, because I recognize if we got 2 more people, we could do 4 times as much stuff, and as long as we don't pay them as much as it costs to make the stuff, we make more money. Mm-hmm. And then that multiplies out into trying to make a company, and before you know it, you know, you got a full head of gray hair, and you haven't like sculpted or painted or done anything in forever.
Years.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But you got a slightly nicer car, like, you know, that's right. I don't want that. So yeah, I don't know.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah. So no, I don't really have those aspirations, but maybe one day.
Yeah, I'd like to see a Point Pusher like digital short.
Oosh. Terrible.
Well, then hire him, dude.
Yeah, dude.
Oh yeah, Ron, then hire him, dude. Let him down. Gonna get hired.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, of course, please.
So I was wondering if you, like, I follow you on Instagram and you post quite a bit, just like drawings and stuff. Are you doing those from like your couch, or are you like always at your computer, or?
No, so I have an evil Mac device. I have an iPad, and I take it with me to work, and 90% of those are work meetings. But if I have to, I actually got yelled at that at a company I worked for. It's like, not yelled at, but they were just kind of talking to, like, you can't keep drawing in meetings. And I'm like, I promise I'm listening. Like, when you guys ask me a question for me, I'm engaged. Like, I'm not tuning out, I promise. Like, you know, but I feel like if I'm sitting there just with my hands folded, pretending like I'm more into what we're saying than I am, then, you know, it's just kind of a waste of time.
Yeah.
So I sketch in those all the time, and now that I'm teaching again, I take a train ride down into the city, because we live in upstate New York, and I sketch there too. So
it's like an artist's fidget spinner.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, now I get it.
except that it's actually useful as opposed to a fidget spinner.
What do you mean?
So
Yeah, I know exactly like what you're saying. You know, because like drawing, if you draw a lot, right? You can actually even focus better on other stuff if you're listening to it while you're drawing than if you're just listening to it, because your mind just automatically goes to different things. But if you're drawing, you're actually better at focusing on things.
Yeah.
People don't know this about most artists and most people who draw.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think sometimes it's possible that we might be building walls for ourselves. Like, I definitely do think, like, you can't, like, I've accepted, I would love to be an amazing concept artist to the level of, like, say, like a Jamie Jones or somebody like that. I'm never going to be that unless I really, really sit down for years and, like, really dedicate time to that. So that's not ever going to be what I want to do. But if I can sketch to get an idea out good enough, and if ZBrush and digital sculpting keeps trending the way that it has been for this whole time, what I'm noticing is, like, you know, 3D used to be really expensive, and you wanted to make sure you had all your ducks in a row before you did anything 3D.
Right.
So you did all this like 2D pre-production, you know, movies and games, whatever. They used to have whole design Bible packets and all this stuff, and that just doesn't exist anymore. Now it's more like a loose concept most of the time, and you're doing some portion of the design, especially in games, in 3D. You know, and as long as that stuff starts to trend that way, I feel good because, like I said before, I'm getting older. I'm 42 now, and yeah, and damn, you don't gotta say it like that. Like I'm gonna die tomorrow. Shit. No, but
that's just how he is.
No, I know. I'm getting older. You know, and when I've been to studios, I see a lot of gray-haired concept guys, right? I don't see any gray-haired character artists. You know what I mean?
So have fun with it.
Yeah, so I'm trying to trend more towards concept art as I get older, and the more concept people are using 3D, it's like, all right, so you got to be able to draw and paint up to a certain line. You don't have to be Jimmy Jones, and you have to be able to do 3D up to a certain line. You don't have to be Gionacto, right? Like, but if you can be some combination to be 50% of either one of those guys, and you're one dude accepting one salary, and you show up, I'm seeing opportunities like that pop up more and more.
That's actually. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. That was it. I'm sorry.
Okay. I wanted to say that it's funny that you say that because, like, I think 5 years ago or something like that, I got an offer in Serbia to be a lead concept artist for them wherever, because they saw some of my models, and my sketches are really loose, you know, because I focus on silhouette and the general feel of the things and whatever. So these guys gave me a test, and they're like, okay, so do a character. So I made a sketch, right? And then they're like, okay, now do an illustration of it. I'm like, what the? Wait, what? I'm supposed to be an illustrator now? I thought it was like 3D modeler, concept artist, character artist. And they're like, okay, just jump straight to the 3D. And I did the 3D, and the 3D, they liked it. They liked the sketch, even though they didn't really understand its use that much, because they wanted a full-blown illustration, and then, you know, front view, back view, you know, lateral view of things. And then they're like, yeah, I don't know, because you kind of fail at the illustration part. I'm like, I'm not an illustrator. I'm a concept artist. I do sketches of things. I don't sit there rendering stuff for hours on end just to make things look pretty. No one's going to see that.
Yeah, those guys are losers.
I guess Mike Thompson's not coming in here.
No, see, but you know what's funny? It's funny you brought up Mike, because that conversation made me think of him, right? Like, Mike is somebody, like,
he does all of it.
Yeah, he's what I aspire to be. You know what I mean? He does all of it to a tremendous level. And Mike's been doing that since I was a teenager. I used to look at billboards that Mike designed when I was a teenager. And I've told him all this, so if he hears this, he's probably not going to be embarrassed by it or whatever. But, like, you know, I've told him, like, dude, I used to look at, like, when I was like a New York City backpack indie hip hop kid listening to, like, Raucous Records, and then seeing posters of Talib Kweli and Mos Def and all of these guys in
music illustrations.
Yeah, he used to do stuff for Echo, and it was like I would see that and just go, damn, how do you get that good? Like, that's crazy. And I legit had looked at his art specifically for that. And I love his mindset too. We got to talk at Comic-Con in New York last year a little bit. And I love his mindset because he basically is like, you know, just be an artist. And that's the way I feel. Don't worry about 2D or 3D and whatever. Those are all arbitrary divisions that your job gave you. But you have a responsibility to yourself as an artist to try to get better at multiple avenues, even if you suck at one of them, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of things I don't do super well, but it doesn't mean that I shouldn't try to improve my understanding of things, you know? So, and he's all about that. I love that. And he's already doing it at a high level. So once you see somebody do it, it's easy to kind of get in your head that it's possible for you, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So,
that's someone we should get in here soon.
And you got 38 minutes. 38 minutes left.
No shit. My computer started taking a crap. I I'm struggling to do that stuff with the 200,000 poly model. For fuck's sake.
What'd you do to your computer, man?
I have no idea. I think it's I don't know. It's just. Can you hear my vent? The great sound of vent struggling to keep up with what you're trying to do. Shit. I can't fucking do anything. Oh.
Wave your magic wand,
okay,
dude.
man. We'll be fine.
Yeah, man. Wave your magic wand. So, what do you have any
you say
advice
magic
for anyone that's starting off, like in this field, in this game? Would you have any advice for them, Danny?
It's more competitive than it was when I started. When I started, you just needed an interest. I stunk for a really, really long time at everything. There was nothing I was good at, but I was interested, and there were so few people interested that I was really lucky. And then I was lucky to have like a good mentor to kind of help me out. In Mike DeFeo, he was my boss for a lot of years and really taught me a lot, as well as other folks at Blue Sky too. So my advice would be, even though it's more competitive, if you decide you really want to do it, don't quit, because most of the people that start this will quickly become disillusioned by how uncool it really is to sit in the chair.
Yeah, sure.
They have an idea that it's like you're gonna put on a pair of shades and sit down like, all right, ZBrush me, and like then you're just gonna fucking put on power gloves and go nuts. But that's not real.
Almost close.
I'm doing it wrong then.
No, I was just joking about the Oculus sculpting.
Oh yeah. Yep. Which I love. No, it's all right. Which I love. But yeah, a lot of people fade out, within 5 years. And if you hang tough, it takes a little while to get like super good for most people, to the point where you're really employable and kind of super valuable and all that. So if you hang out for 5 years, you're building towards that, and you're outlasting the people that don't really want to be doing it, So, but yeah, sitting your ass in the chair is tough for a long time. But just be like me and don't be good at literally anything else. And then fear.
Oh yeah. That's really like
fear of starvation will keep you.
The power of starvation compels you.
Yes.
So good that they can't.
Because this is your backup plan.
Backup plan.
If you don't make it, oh well.
Oh my god, this piece really too close to home, dude.
Oh, it's actually home now. Oh god.
Oh god, what am I doing with my life?
So what are the main tools you're using up there?
Me?
Yeah, for work.
So we use ZBrush, Substance Painter. On Crash in particular, Substance Painter completely replaced Photoshop. It's the first game-related thing I've ever done where I didn't use any Photoshop.
Oh wow!
I was really, really happy about it. I really love that tool set. I really.
Wait, you didn't like Photoshop, or are you just happy that you can just?
No, Photoshop was fine. I didn't know. You know what it is? It was. I was dating kind of an older, controlling lady who didn't want to update her ways in a really long time. And, just was like, all right, that's Bernice, like whatever. And then, all of a sudden got introduced to this like really smart young lady that was just like, hey, you know what? Cool. I can totally change. Tell me what you want. And then like her next update would be like exactly what you want. Like that's what it was like. You know what I mean? So there was nothing wrong with Photoshop Bernice, or so I thought, until I met Aaron, Substance Painter.
Yeah, because I didn't even touch texturing or any of that until Substance Painter got out. I was like, there's no way I'm doing this shit in Photoshop. I do not have the patience. I know myself. All right, I know it's not gonna happen. So.
But dude, believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it.
Just believe in yourself. You can do it. Ditch Painter now and go back to Photoshop.
You know what? You're right.
Go back to the old ways.
And then tell us how we're all doing it wrong because we don't do it the hard way.
Right.
Yeah, like you know,
with a substance designer.
Yeah.
Back in my days, Photoshop and no layers.
Yeah, those guys are losers.
I think I actually worked like that for a while. I was 14. Yeah. I was doing pixel art, so yeah. Not like layers actually that useful.
Yeah.
But I was thinking more about like making your own engine instead of using any engine any available engine, and then complain that everybody is using those engines instead of yours.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird, right? Like some complaints are valid. Some complaints totally make sense, but other ones, like, you know, when it's just like, oh, you think there's no value in what's happening now just because it's not as hard as what you used to do, I don't think that that's really a valid.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why we made it. We want to make it easier because we don't like that hard shit.
Yeah. But
I'm sorry, but if you don't lose 2 team members to dysentery, then your game is not.
there you go.
What's Substance Painter's name? If
Dysentery?
Photoshop is.
Photoshop is Bernice. Substance Painter is Cinnamon. No,
no, it is Cinnamon.
I don't know. Karen.
Yeah, it's Karen.
Yeah. That was smooth right there.
So, we have a question. With Substance Painter in the game, do you need to bother with organizing UV islands?
Yes.
Sorry.
Absolutely. Yes.
Sadly,
there's no magic bullet, people. You gotta do a lot of fucking work.
Yeah, Ron.
Oh, okay.
Well,
you should have seen what Ron was doing like 10 minutes ago. It was just hell.
Oh yeah, hell.
You know, if it gets you through, cool. That's the other thing too. Like the thing I like about Substance is like there were times when I'd have a character and I ended up having to rework the character, but I could save out all the smart materials that I was already developing for that character.
Right.
And it allowed me to work in like a first pass, second pass kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I do all my smart material work and get the shaders all working in game like on my first pass. And then when I wanted to clean things up, or if I got notes from rigging, like, hey, we need a change or whatever, then you go back, you make that change. In Photoshop, some of that work would be destroyed and you'd have to do like a lot of manual channel mixing, like fix one thing and then mix that in by hand to everything else. All I had to do, you know, in Substance was go back and repaint my masks, you know? And yeah, it's like that, it was no big deal. It was easy, you know, by comparison. I really love it.
I'm addicted to Substance.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yep. The ZBrush is probably the only other tool that I've felt that way about.
Yeah.
You know.
Wait till you
because I was like, when I first started Substance, I was like, this is like the ZBrush of texturing. I mean, it's just so easy, so responsive, and yeah, I loved it. I love my experience with it.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Jeremy, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say that's how I feel about Marvelous Designer. When I got Marvelous Designer and I started doing Marvelous Designer for clothing and I really like got into the zone for it, I was like, I never want to sculpt another piece of fabric ever again in my life because I'm just going to use this motherfucker right here.
So
I mean, for stylized stuff, I would imagine, obviously, but you know.
Yeah, I'm just now learning Marvelous, and I'm gonna try to find.
Actually, because of Marvelous, I learned how to do like fashion patterns and stuff like that. It's like, Jesus, I didn't expect to learn all this.
Yeah,
because I wanted to learn how to do some jackets and stuff. I said I'll try Marvelous, and then I ended up spending a week just learning how patterns work and how the stitching crap like that works. So I said,
you know,
I didn't expect this to be too much of a learning experience.
Can I give a random plug?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Sure.
Real quick. So this lady, I don't want to screw up her name. Medina
she put that out today?
Chianiti. Yeah, she put out a tutorial today that I downloaded. It's like an hour and 15 minutes and watched it. And I've watched a few Marvelous tutorials already and, you know, gotten good information from each one. This is the first one that I sat down. It was compact. I watched it all the way through. It was so good. I was actually compelled to write her a message after, like, hey, I watched the tutorial. It was really great, you know?
Right.
but I thought it was like really, really good. So if you're looking to learn Marvelous, for me, that's one of the better ones I've seen.
Yeah, I'm actually picking that up tomorrow.
Yeah, on her ArtStation, it's her front thing here, and then also
put that
Paul
link in the chat
Liao.
for me, please.
Yeah, we'll do. Paul Liao also, I think, either has one coming or it's out already. And I definitely want to see that because I've known Paul for years, and man, that guy, he's great at explaining things, which is what this was too. Mm-hmm. So I want to see, and I know he's like meticulous. He will deep dive on a subject. So I want to see how far he goes with this stuff too. So those are two to check out.
I don't know Paul that well, but he's a pretty soft-spoken guy from what I understand.
You got the Matrix, dude.
Am I? I'm in the Matrix?
Oh, it's fixed now.
Yes.
No, now it's back.
Oh, the pill. You took that blue pill. You gotta leave, man.
Yeah, there you go. I just dropped it in the chat.
Alrighty. I will post that for everybody.
Yeah, it was just a really good tutorial. So I don't know her at all. I've never worked with her or whatever. So it's an unbiased opinion.
That's good. Yeah, because there's a bunch of tutorials out, and some of them have little gems here and there, but there's very rare that it's like good from start to finish.
Yeah, this one I felt was good start to finish. It was practical, and she's like, hey, we're gonna make this jacket. This is what it's gonna look like, and I'm gonna show you every single step to get there. And then she just does that. Mm-hmm. And there was a part where I was just like, oh man, like she's gotten really far and she's only like a little bit in. And then I looked at the time slider. She was like more than halfway in, but it didn't feel like it. You know how some tutorials are like,
oh god, you gotta play it at double speed because the guy's talking about his cat or something.
Oh.
Oh, you saw that one too.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I see all those. I have the bad luck. Like, oh, it's starting to look good. And then it's like, well, now I'm gonna do this. Oh, hey, my cat came in, and now I gotta talk about that for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Those are clearly not the ones.
Just have a double stitch.
Dude, you could have just sent it to my face. You don't have to talk about that.
So, as a teacher, what made this like what makes a good tutorial? Because you've done a lot of classes like online with ZBrush workshops and a few other places as well. Whenever you're creating these curriculums or these lessons, what's the number one thing that you try to get across to your students?
I try to remember, and a lot of this comes from like when I started teaching, I didn't know if I was qualified, and I probably wasn't. I probably still am not, but there's like a thing that you want when you don't feel really qualified to do it. You start like really examining, when I make this move, why am I making it? And then you try to backtrack and explain, oh, well, I'm doing that because of this. I could go this way, but I go that way because blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden you start realizing, oh shit, there's a lot of stuff I'm taking for granted. If I talk about this thing, I have to mention these other two ways to do it and why I might not choose to do those in this situation. And then you start backtracking, and all of a sudden you realize there's a lot of stuff that I'm just like kind of doing intuitively that I'm not thinking about anymore. And I need to make sure that I'm conveying that. So it's that really trying to put yourself in the mindset of someone who's like just learning and trying to get them to like understand why you're making the moves that you're making, instead of just going, cool brush, here we go, like just cool brush. I just don't want to do that.
Everybody's press Control D. All right, that's it.
Hey, that's it.
Yeah, but I've loved teaching. Like, teaching is definitely the best job I've ever had. And just like, as soon as they get that, they're like, oh, I get it. Like, yes, fuck yeah. And just now on to the next one.
I just want to be a student more than I want to teach or more than I want to do anything else. Like, I have that lottery fantasy with my wife at least once a month. And I just think like, oh, who would I take classes with? Like there's a bunch of people I want to take classes with. And,
so who's the first one you're going to go to when you win the lotto?
Gionecto. Not even a second thought. Geo, I had a chance to take a class with Simon Lee when I was in LA, which was great. But then my job at the time got really, really busy, and I ended up missing like 2 of the classes. It was like 2 out of 6 that I missed or something like that. And like, I wish that I had the good sense at that point to go, no, fuck off, like I had a prior thing. But I was just like, yes, sir. So, yeah, but yeah, it would be Geo Necco for sure. He's been my favorite organic modeler for a long time.
And what is it about his work?
That everything feels believable. Even though sometimes he is doing things, and I mean, I'm a fan of a ton of people, right? Like, so for me to say clearly that I like his stuff the best, it's literally just because everything feels believable. He can add an extra joint to an arm, but the way that joint mechanically functions and the way the musculature wraps around that arm, you're like, oh yeah, I totally believe that could be a real creature, you know?
Right.
So, and he's been doing that for a long time. So, and then seeing what he's doing in Medium now too has been ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I don't even mean necessarily the detailed stuff, because before he started doing like the detailed things that he's doing now, he was doing some stuff that was like more gestural, and I've always loved his more loose gestural stuff even more than the detailed stuff, because he's conveying so much with so little, like so few strokes. Man, he's a master. So yeah, he'd be the first one for sure.
Yeah, I would go with Simon Lee.
Yeah. Dude,
that would blow my mind.
I'm on that same page, man. That'd be great.
Scott Robertson.
Oh yeah, of course,
for sure.
Yeah, dude, that's a great.
Yeah,
one.
for sure. Jordan Shell would be up there.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's so good. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's insane. Jordan Shell would be up there. I'd like to take an illustration class with Mike Thompson. That'd be good. Dennis Zilber.
Hit him up. He'll just come over, buy him Chinese food. He'll teach you.
Yeah. Dennis Zilber would be good to do a class with. I really love his work. Yeah, there's so many people.
Oh yeah.
But I actually legit fantasize about that. And then I wonder, like, would I get like 2 months in and be like, man, you're a millionaire, get the fuck out of here.
I don't need this shit.
Yeah, so who knows?
Who knows? You got 20 minutes on the dot.
Hey Ron, is my mic okay?
Oh yeah,
right
much
now?
better.
Okay, yeah. I wanted to say something. You were mentioning stuff about concepting, and you kind of reminded me about something that I saw in one of Scott Robertson's videos, which was really cool, and it was like the best thing that I ever heard. He was talking about, while he was concepting, that it's a conversation between you and the concept. So you have to go 50% with what you want, but you have to be guided by what's on the paper, and you have to go with sort of like the motivations that you see there that are strong. You got to make them stronger, you know?
Yeah.
And stuff like that. I really love that, how he put it, that it's a conversation between what's being done and what your idea is.
Yeah. There's a guy named Carlos Grangel. He's a concept artist working out of Spain mostly, but he's done a lot of concepts for like animated features and stuff. And we worked on projects at DreamWorks, and he was kind of the lead character designer. And, you know, I would work on something, and he would look at it and kind of give me notes or whatever. And one of the things he would always say, he'd be like, you know, Danny, when you learn to listen to the character, it's going to tell you so much. And I would be like, oh, Carlos smokes weed. Like, you know. But now that I'm older or whatever, it's exactly what you just described. It's that, you know, because you're responding, right? If you're really honest about it, you're looking at what you're doing. And if you're not just go all the time, and you actually kind of sit back and go, oh, you know what? Do I like this angle in relationship to this other angle? No. Change. Yes. leave it, you know. But you have to do that evaluation, and it is based on what's there, you know. So yeah, I agree with that 100%. It is a conversation.
Yeah, it's really great. And also what you said, with, you know, that he would come and tell you stuff about the. It's always good if you find someone who understands where you're going with and gives his own vision and input and ideas. And sometimes what will result is something better than what both of you could have done alone. You know.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
I sort of had this. I had this kind of relationship with a concept artist at my job, where we didn't really get along at first, but yeah, but after a while, we figured that we could do some really cool stuff, you know, together. Like we would just sit there and we would just brainstorm together while we're working. It was like, what if you do this and this would fit with this better and this would be in blah blah blah, right? And
yeah,
we were just like, yeah, it's really cool if you cooperate and if you listen to other people.
Yeah,
You make it
and
sound really
I was
nostalgic.
not.
You're making it sound really nostalgic. Did something bad happen to you?
But I will say for sure that's something that's come more easy as I've gotten older, because you failed sometimes, right? And you go, all right, I have an expectation for this thing that I'm working on, and I wanted to get to that expectation. And I would say most of the time you probably get close to where it is, or close enough so you don't really think about it. But the times when you fail to get, you know, even sometimes on a daily basis, I try to give myself like a daily goal when I have a task at work. Like by the end of the day, I want to have this. And if it takes me 6 hours, you know, sometimes I'll knock off early. But if it takes me 10, 11, 12 hours, I'll stick around until I get that goal done if I can, you know. Sometimes you fall short. It's like you're coming up on 10, 11, 12 hours and you're like, all right, I got to go home and I didn't get there and this sucks. But that failure teaches you, those failures teach you that like, hey, you don't know everything. And then you start being more open to collaboration as a result of that, you know, for sure.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think it's also a matter of sort of discipline. And the idea is that, as you said, you learn that you don't know everything, but at the same time, for me, when I'm really persistent, right? I don't give up. And it's sort of like every time that happened to me, I learned that no matter what the thing is, if I stick with it long enough, I can solve it, you know?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And like when you get that confidence that it's all about time, and if you just give it time and you just rethink your strategies and blah blah blah, you will get to what you want.
Yeah.
Then you're done.
Oh, fuck you, ZBrush. I love you, ZBrush.
Did it crash?
A little bit.
Look at Karen already getting her renders together. Wow.
We got a render
here.
She's already
Wait,
rendering. Look
I
at
gotta render this shit. Fuck.
I don't think anybody's dethroning Karen tonight.
Cause she can render. Oh, all right.
That's how quick she is.
Holy shit, yeah, that's crazy. It sounds really good.
Thanks, man. So Karen, how was life at EA this week?
Busy. We're in alpha. The fun prison continues.
And you went to Las Vegas? How was
I
that?
did. It was a learning experience. It was 118 degrees one day.
Oof.
And I'm actually going to New York soon too, to get some more rookies.
So you basically learn how to live on the sun?
Yeah. They send me to dangerous, areas.
Right.
See how I survive the elements. But yeah, it was really, and all the athletes, like, I always expect them to be like super like divas and stuff, but like 99% of them are like really nice, nice, happy people, really happy 20-year-olds that they're gonna make.
Who's the 1% orange? Can you name names?
Yeah. Can you give us some specific names and jersey numbers, please?
No.
Yeah. Need to know.
Maybe after.
They don't. they won't know about this podcast.
But yeah, it was really exciting that, you know, because sports games come out almost the same time every year. It's kind of like this cycle. Like there's just you go. There's just build up game releases, and then you do it all over again. And we're at the end, we're at the home stretch.
So were any of them like really happy that they're in a game?
Some of them were, yeah, like really, like make me look good, or like, oh, I didn't get my hair cut, or you know, that kind of stuff.
So they are divas, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
You know, they're gonna be immortalized in a game, so
Yeah, you gotta make sure everything's tight.
Of course, they want to look their best, really.
yeah.
12
That makes
minutes.
sense.
12 minutes left, everybody.
Stop it,
12
Ron.
minutes.
Your clock's broken.
Oh, that's right. I remember one time we had a show meshed up, and Nick was like, "Hey, I'm gonna do this in After Effects and do a little timer, so everybody knows." And it was like
The most stressful thing
halftime.
ever.
It was like halftime, so we had like 2 hours and like 15 minutes to sculpt instead of an hour and a half. It was great. Everybody was like, "Man, I got so much done." And then we looked at the time, and it was like 2 hours.
Oh, the clock was the wrong speed?
Yeah.
Ah, that's funny.
So yeah. So Danny,
Yes, sir.
what was your very first gig?
Blue Sky.
Blue Sky?
Wow.
Yeah. Well, so all right. My very first gig was McDonald's.
Nice,
I was 13.
It's true.
So Blue Sky was my first gig. I met a girl, a lady in college.
Beatrice?
Nope, Danielle. And she hooked me up with the graphics program in college. I didn't know that we had one. I was trying to learn to paint, and then she told me about that, and I kind of saw Toy Story and kind of fell in love, and was like, I want to learn how to do that. And then a couple of years later, she was working at Blue Sky, and she asked me if I wanted to come in for a visit, and I came in for a visit, and I basically was like, hey, if you guys ever need somebody to sweep floors, whatever, I'm being dead ass 100% serious. Like, I will do that to learn. And there was a lady there who liked that I said that. A lady named Andrea Brown, and she called me. Was like, "Hey, do you want to take Danielle's job? She's getting promoted. Don't tell her." And her job at the time was to be an assistant, a technical assistant. So you just basically do like backups of the software, their rendering software. So you just do backups of that, and you know, whatever else they ask you to do. You know, it never got like to like, hey, go get coffee, whatever. But if they would ask me to go get coffee, I would have got it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but yeah, it was that, and then I thought I was going to be an animator, and then I started looking at all the cool models that there were a few guys, Alex Levinson, Mike DeFeo, and Sean Cusick. I started looking at their models, and I was like, holy shit, I want to learn that. And you know, then they let me work on commercials for a little while, and it went from I'm getting to work on commercials to you guys are jerking me, you're making me work on commercials, but I still get an assistant salary.
Oh, right.
You know, in like 2 years, it became that because I'm a fucking stupid person. And then you know, from there it was just like, all right, it's cool, we'll make you a modeler. And then they started making movies like a couple of years later, which was terrifying because before they were just doing commercials and shots for live action films that had animated elements. And then you know, yeah, so Blue Sky was my first gig, and I loved it. I really, really loved it.
How long were you there?
Almost 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so you thought I was playing. I really am super old.
Are they're still around, yeah?
Yeah, they're around. They're in Connecticut now. I left like a week before they moved to Connecticut, so I still have never seen the Connecticut offices. But I'm gonna get down there one day. I still have friends that are there. There are people who are still there from, you know, way before I got there, like years and years before I got there. That are still there. So they and I've been gone now almost 10 years. So yeah, they actually that's not true. 8 years. But they they're still there, and it does still have, from everything I hear, kind of still that like mom and pop kind of feel.
Oh, nice.
Which is great.
And so, who do you thank for getting you into this like industry? I guess it'd be the same person that let you
there's a few people. Danielle is a huge one. In college, I had a professor because he let me skip a bunch of the prerequisites, and I would basically I was his assistant for a while, so I had like keys to his office and things. So, like, at night I would literally be in his office with security coming to flash the flashlight, in the office because the light's on or whatever, and I'm learning because at the time none of this shit was on PC. Right, so it was all on SGI machines. Yeah.
Also, there was no internet like we have now, right?
Yep. No, nothing. There was like Netscape.
You couldn't Google it and watch a tutorial on Netflix.
Nope. It was all reading manuals. So I would like read a manual and come in like freaking the nerdiest part of Peter Parker the next morning. like, hey John, did you know that there are NURBS and polygons? And he, so it was like I was doing research sort of, but kind of for him. Mm-hmm. And then he would go back into class and like kind of teach some of the things. He'd teach and he'd have his whole lesson, and then like a word or two would make it in that we discussed. I'd be like, oh, I wonder if that came from me. Yeah. And then I left early to go to Blue Sky. I was already on like academic probation, but I was also on residence hall staff, and it was like, hey, we can fight to get you off of academic probation if you take the class in the summer or whatever. And that was the time when Blue Sky was like, hey, do you want to take a class? And I was like, keep paying money to learn to do this thing that I've decided I definitely want to try to do with my life, or go try to make money doing that thing with other professionals. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to try to do that. And I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
We're glad you did it too, because you're a huge influence on so many of us, even in this room, not to mention all the shit that you've done that we hit on earlier in the broadcast.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, sure, man.
Yeah, thanks, man.
It's so weird. I feel super old now because it's like that's the kind of shit you say to like somebody when they're definitely on their way out. Hey, thanks. Running the back. The door's over there.
Thanks for your life's work.
Yeah, thanks.
Your work is done. We will remember you fondly.
Yeah, right.
Well, Danny, if it makes you feel any better, like I decided to do this, like learn 3D and all that. I took your class at what's his name?
With Ryan?
With Ryan, yeah. And I took your class at 38. So I'm older than you, but I'm the noob as far as that's concerned.
Matrix.
Yeah. Ryan is so like I haven't talked to him in a while, but I love talking to him because it's like always talking to Ryan is like meditative.
Oh yeah.
Like his voice is so like, so how are you doing?
Right.
Like he's just very like, well, Dad, and start talking to him. No, but he's a really, really smart man, and I definitely have learned a lot. I always thought if I taught online again, it would be with him, but the guys that started CGMA, I worked with at DreamWorks for a while.
Oh, okay.
And I always wanted to do a class there with them, but the more we talked about it, I was kind of already wrapped up with Ryan, and I felt bad about trying to do both.
Right.
But I think enough time has passed, and Ryan's still successful and doing cool stuff or whatever, that it's like it's cool for me to do this now. So they reached out again, and I was like, yeah, absolutely, I would love to do that. So yeah.
What's the curriculum looking like?
So it's sculpting stylized characters, and they're gonna go live with the actual like course breakdown and everything in the next few days, I think. So yeah, all that stuff will be online, but I think it's gonna be a really fun class. Like I've had the good fortune to see some of the CGMA courses before or whatever, and they do like a real top-notch job. You know, so yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be fun, but we'll probably do like a webinar and all that stuff, like rolling up to that. So yeah, when that stuff's coming around, my dumb face will be plastered all over Facebook.
Definitely let me know. So how long is the class going to be?
I think it's 10 weeks.
Oh, nice.
Like that.
That's a good amount of time, for sure.
Yeah, so yeah, I think it should be pretty cool, and I'm jazzed to do it. I definitely felt rusty when I got back to SVA. I could feel the difference in kind of the comfort that I felt the last time that I did it versus now I'm in a room full of people looking at me and I'm like, oh shit, I cannot disappoint all of you.
Right?
Some of you, yes. Some of you will inevitably disappoint. Hopefully not all of you.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about you, but like for me, whenever I walked in, I was like, man, I hope I'm not a fraud.
That's real, man. That's real. That's real. Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Because you're standing in front of all those people, and you're like, okay, I'm here. I am your guide through all this, and I'm going to teach you everything. And you're just like, man. Like for me, I just built the curriculum and the class around I hate going to school, and I hate being told what to do. And that's the way I created mine, and try to make it as interactive as possible, as one-on-one as I could. And are you able to are you gonna have like a in-house, or is it all online?
So this is all online. The SVA class, which is gonna run concurrently, so we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna be doing a full-time job, SVA, and freaking CGMA. But a lot of the CGMA stuff is stuff that I've been kind of creating over the summer. So there's not going to be as much demand for the CGMA stuff to make brand new content, for especially, I try to break things into core art lessons and then that are more like kind of theory things, and then the practical hands-on stuff. I had to remake some of that, and because 4.8 came out. But the hands-on art theory stuff is stuff that I still have, the videos for, just to kind of talk about shape and rhythm and all that kind of crap.
You got 30 seconds, everybody.
Damn it!
You got 30 seconds. All right, everybody.
Stay 30.
In the audience, it is up to you now to decide who has won tonight's Mesh Up. All right, so put it in the chat, put it in the comments. Let us know who won, and we're going to go through them right now. We have Ad right here.
30 seconds, man.
Chris Jones. The always gracious Danny Williams, Point Pusher.
Yes.
And then we have Gen 506.
Oh, it's quick.
Hiram, Highly Top Secret. And then we have Jeremy Ortiz. And then Karen, our reigning champion.
Of one.
Of one. And then we have Leo.
Wow.
And then we have Ricardo. So just write in the comments who you think won, and then they'll get a special prize of me recognizing that they're alive. So you definitely want to give them that opportunity. And so yeah, just put it in the chat. And other than that,
I vote Karen.
Can we beg for votes?
Oh,
Please vote
absolutely.
for me.
Yeah.
Are you serious? You did the presentation, no?
Right?
God damn it, Karen.
Oh, yeah.
Is Danny still in here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such an overachiever.
Your class, is it going to be at SVA? Is it going to be open enrollment, or do you have to be a student there?
I think you have
Oh,
to.
wow, Jen. Look at you.
Oh, all right. Because I was going to say, I'll take a train for that class.
Oh, man. Are you in the city, Jeremy?
I'm on the island of Long. I'm on Long Island.
Ah. Yeah, we should. I mean, if you want, we should look up for lunch one day or something.
Yeah, I'm down.
If you're ever in the city on a Saturday.
I will let you know.
Yeah, let me know.
Yo,
It
it's
is
a
a
date. It's a date.
Nice. We'll be able to look back and tell our kids, Jeremy, one day.
Yeah,
This is
right.
how we met.
Yeah.
Watch that episode.
All right, so we got one vote for Danny. We got one vote. Still waiting on
Can
a
we
couple
vote?
more. I don't know. Yeah, you can vote for yourself. I think that'd be
I'm
a great
not gonna. I'm
tiebreaker.
gonna vote for Danny.
Isn't that how she won last
No,
time?
don't vote for me. I shouldn't be eligible.
I was gonna say, doesn't
feels
Danny
weird.
automatically win because he's the special guest?
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
made all these concepts, so
We're all winners.
Yay! Everybody gets a
that's
trophy.
pretty much.
Yay, participation! Yay.
Raph says Jeremy did very well. I'm not voting for him because I want to make sure he doesn't sleep on an empty stomach.
Nice.
All right, everybody. So definitely write in the comments, and we are going to end it for the night. Danny, thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having me. I would love to do it again in the future, especially now that I know it's not at like 1 a.m. You know.
Right.
But yeah, thank you so much for this. This is really fun. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And
Thanks for coming, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And everybody else, say good night.
Night,
Good night. And thank you, Dan.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks,
See you guys.
Danny.
Later.
Yeah.